Currently in the One Punch Man manga, Blast is battling Empty Void, a god avatar with unfathomable power. But throughout this series, there is other great S-Class heroes as well, like Tatsumaki. And recently, we also saw her push to her limit as she battled Psycho Orochi in one of the greatest fights of the Monster Association arc. And so my question today is to bring in One Punch Man expert Zonin. He has a great channel, covers lots of variety of anime, and he just, man, this guy can, like, you ask him a question, he can pull out the exact page number line from his head. Like, he just knows everything about One Punch. So let's have him on board to talk about, now that we've seen an array of blast powers and Tatsumaki pushed to her limit, do we think that the number 2 hero could even stand remotely a chance against Blast? Welcome, Zonin. Let me know what you think, buddy.
We've seen that Blast can counter, like, other cosmic people that have, like, quote-unquote cosmic abilities. Like, he fought against Cosmic Fiergaro and Empty Void, but we haven't really seen him, like, I don't know, earnestly go against somebody outside of that, besides like Flashy Flash, who obviously he could just like behead in like a second probably. But Tatsumaki, her Esper abilities and how far they could go against somebody like Blast, I mean, on paper, and I'm assuming a lot of people in the comments are gonna be like, well, there's no contest here, Blast would just destroy Tatsumaki. And it's like, I get it, the story is kind of put forth that is the foregone conclusion, but I think Tatsumaki has like a lot of potential, and we haven't really seen what she's fully capable of yet. Blast is probably aware of that too, so I'll say that if she could get pushed even further than like what Sairochi and even Saitama pushed her, she could probably get competitive with somebody like Blast.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is, if he uses any of his projectiles on her, then she could probably use her Esper powers to like push it away or shoot it, you know, bounce it back at him or even manipulate them. So like she can put a barrier around herself. We know Blast is like crazy fast, like faster than even Flashy Flash. So the question is, could he just like straight up teleport right behind her and hit her with a gravity knuckle and just knock her out immediately? Or does she have like some sort of resistance to that, like with the barrier? Does her psychic powers like kind of give her a sense of like who's behind her so she could guard herself? Could she just like crush Blast before he could do anything? I mean, I doubt that. He'd probably just teleport himself like, you know, into another dimension so she couldn't touch him and then teleport back out and one-shot her. Maybe, but if she has dimensional powers, you know, she could potentially counter him in some sorts of ways. And, you know, he seems to be partly physical, partly long range kind of character. And she's like specifically long range, I guess. So if she could just fly and, you know, keep her distance. But that's really hard against Blast, who can literally teleport anywhere, even outside of reality.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're familiar with these terms, but the way you're putting it, Tatsumaki's kind of like mage, and Blast kind of like a paladin almost.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a sense she's like a glass cannon, and I would definitely think that Blast is like way tankier than her. You know, he fought the Elder Centipede God and, you know, whoever else. So he's definitely got her on the resilience. What areas, honestly, like, does she even win in terms of like battle ability? Like, Blast can fly too, right? So she doesn't even have that on him.
Yeah, at this point, I would say the only thing that she can really do is, like, squeeze him to death the way that she, like, was trying to do to Sairochi, because normally in these fights, I would say, oh, well, she could throw the guy into space or something, which I was speculating about for a while before she actually implied that she could do it against Saitama back when they were going against each other in the manga. But throwing Blast into space does nothing. It probably even helps him at this point.
Yeah.
So you have to, like, rush him physically, like what she does, but she would have to like ultimately get so strong as to where she could do that. So we saw that, like, you know, her exerting her psychic strength on Saitama in the webcomic more impressive, I guess, than it was in the manga, but nonetheless she can still like kind of lift a being who has no limit to their power. Right. So Blast, who does have a limit, I guess is susceptible to that for sure. But he also has some kind of defense. Like, he has gravity manipulation to some extent. I'm sure he has some kind of Esper defense. And I'm sure he definitely knows a lot about Tatsumaki and her abilities. since he kind of raised her, question mark. I don't know.
Yeah, he absolutely has the upper hand in terms of like knowing all of her abilities versus her knowing all of his abilities. I mean, we as the reader don't even know all of his abilities. And he's definitely hiding some trump cards up his sleeve, but if we're taking this from a perspective of how much they know about each other. I mean, I would also approach it from the perspective of like, say Tatsumaki, she knew that one day she might have to fight Blast. So like she built up some sort of barrier, or her barrier is able to counteract his dimensional powers. Like if we started there with that like assumption, which she could probably do, to be honest, like I feel like she probably could do that. And she could like make her psychic power like effective against his black god power, black dimensional powers, whatever it is called. The power of darkness, he called it, right? Maybe not. I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, she'd have to do so much work. I guess the real question is how superior is Blast to her? Like, would this be any contest at all, or is he just leagues and leagues and leagues so far beyond her that she could never catch up to him?
Say never. Probably by the end of this series, Tatsumaki will be similar to Blast in strength, if not even stronger than him. I'm just taking a guess. Because I also had this theory that Blast was like Tatsumaki at first, and then his powers were refined into having what he has now. Like, he might inherently be an Esper too, since it was said by Fubuki in the data book, but that was like 10 years ago, so maybe things have changed. But I don't think that she'll never be able to catch up to him, but right now, the difference between them, at least in my opinion, where I see things, is like the difference between Tatsumaki and somebody like who's one of the strongest?
Fubuki, even. I mean, it might be something like that.
I was gonna say like Genos or something. It just seems
she would just
pretty ridiculous.
She would just crush Genos like in a second. He couldn't do anything to her. I think if you have any kind of like dimensional or black hole abilities, gravity abilities, like the regular, like the robots and the people who aren't monsters basically stand no chance. Like they would just, unless they could strike you so fast, like right as you were trying to activate that power, maybe, like if Genos could like light speed dash in Tatsumaki's face and knock her out before she could crush him, like maybe. But I think you're right. I think we may actually get a reveal about Blast being an Esper in the future too, because it definitely adds up to it, especially with the way that he always appears to show up at the right moments, and he knows everything that's going on. It definitely appears like he's an Esper, but he could also just be kind of observing everything from the outside, like Empty Void does. Like, whatever he's doing out in space, like he could just have an eye on Earth, like at all times. Whenever he teleports outside of reality, he can check in and then teleport to Tatsumaki. Like when she was about to take God's hand, and then she resisted it, and then the real Blast showed up. Like he just knew, and so. Yeah, maybe Esper powers do eventually convert into these godly abilities. That's absolutely a possibility. Like, maybe Blast dies in the battle with God, and Tatsumaki kind of gets his powers and becomes number one. I could absolutely see that happening.
Yeah, I think Blast will die. I think that's a foregone conclusion. When series introduce characters like Blast, they're ultimately meant to die, and I think that he will for sure.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like they built him up so much, they made him this Chad, they hid him for so long, but talked about him, right? Get you super attached, make him super badass, and then you establish all those things so that when he does die, like as a viewer, it hits you like right in the chest, and you get all emotional. I mean, it's because like they've attached so many stakes to his character, like, and you feel it, and Tatsumaki's gonna feel it, and maybe even Saitama's gonna feel it. But I don't think Blast dying would send him over the edge. Obviously, Genos is like really, I think, the only one that could like really die and send Saitama into like complete berserker mode. Maybe King too. Do you think that Blast will take Tatsumaki into the final fight with God? And who else do you think he would bring along?
So I do think that he is going to make more of his Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever he has, because it seems like it's like a like something you can learn almost. And that goes back to what I was saying about how Tatsumaki can learn these abilities, because when we look at the other members of Blast's group, they kind of could do the same thing that he does, right? Like when Blast was trying to contain the two serious punches between Garo and Saitama, he was like struggling, and then his team came in and they did whatever they were doing to seal that. So it seems like they all kind of have the same thing going on. So it's very possible that Blast may bring Tatsumaki into this fold and then teach her how to do these cosmic abilities. I mean, not right now, because he's still kind of keeping Tatsumaki safeguarded. He doesn't want to bring everybody into this battle because they're just instantly going to get killed by God. So, he's trying to keep them on Earth. The domestic threats are more reasonable and manageable. So it's going to be like Tatsumaki. Flashy Flash seems to be a part of this group. So he'll eventually become a cosmic dude, I guess. Maybe Genos. And, I haven't really seen Blast interacting with anybody else. Could be Blue.
Well, I think, Blue, I could absolutely see Blue coming. Like, the thing is, though, like, you have to be able to be resistant to cosmic radiation. I feel like only Genos, Saitama, Blast, and Esper could do it. But I think, like, Flashy Flash, Atomic Samurai, and Bang, like, those kind of dudes, if they went out there, like, God could just snap his fingers and they'd be dead just from the radiation alone. So...
Oh, instantly, yeah, for sure. I'm saying, hypothetically in the future, if they learn whatever these other members of Blast's team has learned, because, right. I don't know, I'm just assuming they're not all immune to cosmic stuff at first, Yeah,
it would seem that way. It would seem that they all kind of have similar powers, because in that one chapter before it was redrawn, Blast was like, quick, we have to reseal the barrier, before God gets out or whatever. So, like, they all have this kind of darkness power or whatever it is that Blast has, whether they are God avatars that broke free or Blast trained them. Could be either one. I definitely see like some sort of training arc coming up eventually where Blast has to kind of assemble the Avengers and teach them how to fight against God, and then, take them out into space to battle this guy.
Yeah, I think that's what will comprise of the last arc, probably. And it'll be on both sides. God will have like his team, Empty Void, whoever has the Moon Blade, which is like the counterpart to Atomic Samurai. We'll have like some kind of Esper on their side, maybe Fuzzy, and guys like that.
It's gonna be there's a lot. I mean, he could potentially take all the best Neo heroes and all the best S rank heroes from the Hero Association, depending on if maybe he just gives them a freaking astronaut suit, and that's like enough. I don't know, maybe, but I mean, I think Tatsumaki is probably something like 20% of the strength of Blast, in my opinion. Maybe even less, maybe 10%. It's hard to say without seeing Blast literally go 100%. I feel like we did see Tatsumaki go 100% when she twisted up the whole Monster Association into that spear and like tried to kill Orochi with it. So, in my opinion, she was all out there because she was like completely toast afterwards. Like, she tried to fight more, but she like passed out and got messed up. So, but like, we haven't seen Blast get to that point. For the most part, he's just like dodging and using like sealing techniques and teleporting around. I mean, we've seen Gravity Knuckle, and I think his biggest attack seemed to be the one he used on Empty Void, that huge like black Kamehameha thing. Definitely want to see that in action again, but it didn't hurt Empty Void, so I don't know. We haven't seen his full potential for sure. And I mean, with that in mind, Tatsumaki definitely stands no chance. But as you said, she has a lot of potential. She's way younger. She's like 20 years younger than him too. So by the time she's his age, she could be his level. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it will happen for sure. She'll have, wild cosmic abilities by the end.
Yeah, I'm crazy pumped about this War on God arc and like how we get there, but I guess we got to finish Mad Cyborg first.
Ultimately, right now there is no match between them, but in the future there will be. Tatsumaki obviously focused on in the series the way that she is because she will be one of the endgame people against God, because she kind of has to be. So When that's gonna happen, man, 7-8 years from now probably. But
Yeah,
you know,
probably.
stay tuned.
Stay tuned, guys. Subscribe. All right. Well, thanks, Zonin, for joining us today. Make sure you guys check out his channel. He covers all sorts of great anime like My Hero, One Piece, JJK, and all sorts of others. One Punch Man. He really knows his stuff, and he's a great channel. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you guys on the next One Punch video.